make the right decisions is kind of get yourself out of your own body in a way and look down like you're looking down on another person's situation and another person and whatever, and see the ones that are successful, the ones that have happiness, the ones that are experiencing joy in this life. And what you find is that pretty every time the fleeting things of the world, the things that the devil tempts you with, and that they're not really happiness. They're not joy, as we're told in the scriptures we should have. And the ones that are having it are these very ones that put these family and the idea of a life after this life, so this life isn't all that terrible important to you. It is in a way. It's really important because the associations you have here lead to those associations, I think, in the next life. However, I think we knew each other's nature and that before we even come here. And so I just think that you should study it kind of a scientific way and look and see who's having joy and who isn't. What kind of joy it is. Some people claim they're having joy and they're out drinking and all that, and eventually it leads to, you can analyze that, it leads to real troubles.
Let's see.
Pragmatists, that's what farmers are. We're either born into it or educated into being pragmatists.
Well, let me ask you this: if you could live your life over again, if you could make different decisions about anything, are there any decisions you would take differently, or?
There's some things, embarrassments and that I wouldn't do again. That's for sure. But in a general nature of things, I guess there isn't a lot I'd do different. I know when I was little, evidently, I didn't hear this until about the time Warren died, but he said that Mom was really mad at my dad for getting her pregnant with me. I can imagine there probably was some thought of that because they were in the process of losing the farm and everything else out to Taylor's Flat and moving it. But anyway, my answer was good to Orrin too. I said, that's before my mother knew me. After she knew me, why, she would never said anything like that ever. And the truth was, this Joe Jones, he was the rich landowner around our area that lived up in Eureka at that time. And he had a lot of money. He had banking interests and mining interests, and he had bought a lot of property up down there that had went under foreclosure. And he was the biggest property owner in that area, in the Central Utah Company area. And anyway, they proposed to Mom and Dad that they had plenty of kids and that, and they didn't have any. They hadn't been able to have any kids, him and Velma, Joe and Velma, and they wanted Mom and Dad to give me to them. And my mother, I can remember strange things. I remember one time Joe and Velma showed up there at the house, and she went off with them in the backyard and was talking to them. Then in a while she called me over there, and she'd been crying a little bit. Joe and Velma was real nice to me, but the thing that really stood out in my mind is the next time it was my birthday, they sent me this offset printer, which was really an expensive item. I couldn't figure out what the heck that was all about. I didn't ever learn how to operate that offset printer. But anyway, I tried. I was going to give it a good chance, but I was too young and that to figure out how to set that type. Didn't know how to spell, let alone. Anyway, I guess they had the chance to give me up if they wanted to a real rich family. Mom decided that I don't think it was much of a decision. I got along good with my mother. I think she always had a soft spot in her heart for me.
can you talk about callings you've had in the church over the years and some of your experiences in those callings?
I've always been pretty active in the church. During the time that I was in the school was probably when I was least active. Actually, not so much as that as it was that my records was moved up to BYU, and I was still going back to church in Lindell because I was going there every weekend. And I was trying to get ahead, trying to make a big fortune and everything. And then I'd do all these benevolent things like Count of Monte Cristo story, and that don't work. That's usually what young people do, though. They decide that once they get their money and their success all assured in life, why they'll take up religion and spiritual things and do wonderful things for the whole world. And it don't happen that way in life. You got to do it as you go along. But I was the elder quorum president when I was pretty young. I think it was funny when I and Carol got married. The first church we went to, and I was going to say that before. First time I really remember Carol was we went to 7th grade. We went to this music room to take this music class. We had singing class in there. That's what it was all about, was singing. There was nobody in there to play the organ. And so, old Christensen, he was the music teacher, he leaves for a few minutes. And then Carol comes in and sits down to the piano and starts playing for us. I didn't know her before that time. But he got her switched around so she was in our class. He had to have somebody in each class that could play the piano. And Carol had to play the piano all the time that we was taking music. She was a very good pianist, very good organist. And the same kind of thing happened after we got married. Me and her was kind of ducking the crowd, and we went to the back of the church there in Lindell, and all of a sudden there's nobody up there to play the organ, so they was all hunting around, and somebody was whispering to the bishop this and that, and pretty soon the bishop come down and whispered to Carol, "Can you come up and play the organ?" The piano. She was on the piano bench after that. She always had a ready-made job as an organist or pianist.
You like that she could play?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What? Tell me about, you were elders quorum president, and what else?
Oh yeah, I was the elders quorum president. I've been I was a high counselor for quite a while. Got to be in the Melchizedek priesthood, and then I was made bishop. Only had to serve 9 months until I combined the wards. But yeah, I've always held one job or another. Right now I'm in the missionary group.
You're in the missionary group?
Yeah. Man, I hate to see that. Hit him in the back.
Okay. What are your hobbies? What do you do if you have? Do you ever have downtime? And what do you like to do when you have downtime?
Watch TV.
What are your favorite TV shows?
Oh, my favorite TV shows? Well, it used to be mostly hunting, sports, and that. But in late years, since the Republicans been in there, it's been watching them implode. Kind of gives me satisfaction to see them stewing in their juice.
You have some strong political opinions,
Yeah.
Mr. Nielson.
I used to be a Republican. I went through that stage too.
And now you're
definitely a Democrat. I think that Republicanism is the devil's plan, to tell you the truth, because we're supposed to
edit that all out.
No, we want that in. That plan where they organize everything and do it for you, that was the devil's original concept. He was going to save us all whether we wanted to be or not.
You like public TV though?
Oh yeah, well that's especially the news hour on public TV. I think they're the least biased.
Well, let me ask you this, since we can get away from politics for a minute here. Okay, what personal traits who are some of the people that you admire, and what kind of traits do you admire in people?
Well, the best American that ever lived was George Washington. You can't study him too much. He was he's the best general that the United States ever had, too. And I think,
well, what kind of traits did he have that you admire?
He was an optimist and a federalist, I think. A lot of people disagree here to one extent or another, but federalism means that the government serves you, not that you own it and just have it all yourself. But that's the reason why I liked George. He was a great guy. It wouldn't have been the country it is today, and that's the trouble with having in Iraq today. There isn't a George Washington there. Everybody respects and looks up to. Every denomination, every church denomination, they all want to kill each other so they can be nobody wanted to do that with George. Well, I guess I shouldn't say nobody. There were some Tories in the United States left, but most of them moved up to Canada after the Revolutionary War. So, but I've been studying his history now for the last couple of years, every chance I could get. He's very, very unique human being.
Who, and someone else that you
I like really well.
Admire and characteristics in people?
Well, one guy, there's some other guys, especially.
About Elder Maxwell.
Oh, I liked Elder Maxwell on Churchway. But I'm talking about. I like all the church guys. I think they're all very admirable. But in things that really affect you in life, like politics and in church too, you can't not like the church guys. But the old FDR was one of my heroes, and what do you call him? One of my heroes, Carter, especially since he's been the president. And
since he's been out of the presidency.
Yeah, since he's been out of the presidency. And Clinton, I think Clinton's probably one of the premier politicians of the 20th century. When we left office, he accomplished lots of things, and they've all been reversed now. But
okay, if you could, what have been some of your greatest joys in life, and on the contrary, what some of your greatest sorrows in life?
Well, I don't know. I guess the hardest part of life has really been for me is this foreman, because foreman is inherently a debt situation, and the debt of foreman is always stress. Yeah. Our whole society as a debt society is stress. And in some ways that's a good thing too, because it motivates you beyond what you would naturally do, because you're trying to keep them sinking. But it's kind of a sink or swim situation. And
would you want any of your kids to be farmers?
Oh yeah, I was wishing that they. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't know that it's good for them in the sense of the economics of it, but no, I think that farming's, you can say what you want about farming, it's an honorable occupation. It isn't a crooked sham deal. That's what I think about it. Anybody that wants to take it on is a brave human.
What's been some of is farming giving you happiness, giving you joy?
Yeah, you get a lot of happiness. Even this watermaster job gives you a lot of joy in that, and when you succeed as far as getting so that the farmers get their water and they have good crops. And that last year was a good year for them, even though it was terrible for me because it was a lot of work. It was a dry year, and that ground had to be watered a lot more than it usually does. But it, you know, challenges, overcoming challenges gives you joy, I think.
What are some of the biggest lessons in life that you found to be true?
Well, I think hard work and optimism is important. This new secret book that came out is quite interesting. Or not book, I guess it's a documentary or something. We've been watching that. But what you set your mind to do is most places is possible if you set your mind to do it pretty hard, and you have a lot of opportunity like we do in the United States. But it's also true, this magazine that I just read in this Newsweek, where it said that you can set your mind that it's not hurting you to be shot up in Darfur by the ginger weed and all that, all you want to, and it ain't going to change the situation too much. But so it has its limitations, but it also is a good way in a country that's free to be able to do things, accomplish things that you want to. Our joy, both I and Sandy's joy right now, is in seeing the success of our children. We just marvel at how good our kids has done in life.
Good people they are.
Yeah, we have great joy from their successes, seeing them meet their challenges and overcome them, and it's like Christ said, you feel like you got to go get the lost sheep too. If all of the others are, you still have the lost one. Why you want to find it and you want to save it. They're precious to you.
What are some? Are there any books or things that you've seen, movies that have had a great effect on you that you wish that maybe your own kids or your grandkids would read and
Oh yeah, the scriptures are really. And we've been reading Jesus Christ by Talmage lately, and the new insights that we've gotten from that, I and Sandy, have really been telling experience. Also, reading the Book of Mormon over again together. Seems like every time you do something together, it's got a different kind of you find out and learn more things than you ever did when you just read it yourself. And some other books, like I say, this one on George Washington. I think you should read all kinds of books to get a perspective. I really did like the documentary on that other Republican, old General MacArthur. Yeah, he's a great man. I think he learned a lot of lessons in his latter life too. He was a staunch Republican, but when they made him the commander of the occupation forces in Japan, and he faced up to the fact of what he had to do there, he finally came up to the right conclusion. They had to feed those people first off and take care of them, not just tell them, "Oh, you're on your own now. You got freedom. You can do what you want to." They didn't really want them to have freedom either for a while. That's been quite a. He was a great man. A lot of things he did were.
About movies.
Oh, movies. The Count of Monte Cristo is still my favorite, because sometimes I think that I'm tempted by the same. I know I'm tempted by the same thoughts and feelings that the lead character, what was his name?
Count?
Huh?
The Count?
Well, he called himself the Count afterward, but he had a name in the beginning, and it was different. But he was wronged in in a lot of ways, and he had ideas about it, and life escaped him trying to get revenge. That's about the story of it. I don't know whether you've seen it, but
I need to see it. Is there anything else that you want to add? And I'm going to turn it off and come back and for your testimony later.
okay. No, can't think of anything.
Okay.
A roving
Uh,
family reporter.
This is Dad and Sandy are going to impart some advice to their children and grandchildren about beating the odds and staying married, and even through all the challenges and hurdles that life brings, and because they really have beat the odds. And then Dad's going to share his testimony with us. So what kind of advice, and also we want
Pick your
child
nose
rearing.
real often.
Well, it cuts down on a lot of your frustrations. And do it in secret, so you don't have to see each other and gross each other out. But no. What, do you want to go first, Sonny?
No, I've got to follow up on your lead.
Okay. All right. Well, I think one thing that I try to do with Allie is whenever I see him, no matter how long we've been apart, if it's just a few hours a day or sometimes a week, and I've had to go a lot up to help Jamie this year. She's had kind of an interesting year at school, but I always make a fuss when I see him, and I'm always really happy to see him. And usually I don't ever leave the house unless I tell him where I'm going and give him a kiss and a hug, and I just, always try to make him feel like, I'm real happy to be around him. And do you think I do that, honey?
Yeah, you're really good at it. Very good.
But
You never go to bed mad either. That's a big thing. Sometimes you have to stay up for several days, but
get unmad, but I know there's a lot of things that are written about good marriages, and I think probably one of the most important things for us is that we just really are committed. We're good friends, and I know that I can trust that Allie will be there through any difficulties that might come. So
yeah, and Sandy, you always feel good around the love professor.
Oh, I don't know about that, but and we have a lot of humor. That's one thing we really. It feels so good just to have a good laugh with each other, and a lot of times we're laughing at,
kind of
each other and
off-colored things.
Oh, well, not really, but anyway, I think that's a real
it's
important
important to
ingredient.
have humor. I figured I could win her over with humor. Seems to have worked.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not too humorous. And she don't know about that other guy.
Yeah, I do prefer the nice guy. And usually that's who I have to live with is the nice guy, but
well, I think the biggest thing about it is you really make it a science to have a good marriage too. You study it and everything.
yeah, that's true. I know
Carol
one book
did,
that I recommended to a few of my daughters and daughter-in-laws is I'll listen to Dr. Laura every once in a while, and I really like her book on the proper care and feeding of your husband. And some people say either you love that book and you find the principles in their work, or you absolutely hate it. So I don't know what kind of reaction, I can't guarantee that you'd have the same reaction I did, but I think it does make a lot of sense. And and you know, I think that it's just so much more fun to get along and to be cooperative with one another and be really tolerant of each other's differences and just try to work around it. I think too often we have maybe a we're keeping score or whatever, and I don't know that that is very productive. But and what else, honey? Well, Allie's really in his old age. He just today Debbie and Allie and I and Manuel Jr. went out and did a little shopping at Target, and he bought me flowers and he'll
That's
just
to
do
make
that.
Manuel feel like a heel.
No. But and then we're gonna leave him here for Debbie because she really is the one that deserves them. Because she's been working
I like
real hard
to
keep us
give them
entertained.
other guys a hard time. Give the wife flowers and then they haven't. Why?
But that's not his motivation. I know he's doing it because he loves me. But those are
I
things.
get a lot of mileage out of them flowers.
Yeah, if you could, and they're not that expensive. So if you can just do random acts of kindness to one another, you know, you might not be used to that, and so you might think, oh man, what does she want, or what does he want? But
You got to be kind of interesting too. Nielson men have always their wives never remarried. They didn't think they could ever find anybody interesting.
well, I told him I think it's because they couldn't stand it. Another
Thought about
man in
it.
their life, 'cause they had to work too hard to refine or polish up the one they've got. But no, I don't know. No, that's not. But I have to give him a bad time too. But
we have a lot of humor.
yeah.
And if you can't laugh at yourself, you're in deep trouble in the whole world.
That's true, absolutely.
What about raising kids?
Well,
Well, kids, the biggest trouble parents have with kids is they treat them like kids. If you treat the kids like adults, why then you can get along with them good and everything works out good. But if you start trying to act like you know everything, which you don't, I don't care how old you are, you got to treat them like they're adults. At least that's the way I feel.
well, and I think what you mean by that is you show respect and you listen
Answer
to
their questions, try
their
to.
questions, listen to their side of the story or whatever, and
If they
and
ask
try
you
to
something,
reason
give me your
with them.
best answer. Not just pass it off their kid. And they won't understand anyway. They understand probably better than we do.
Well, and I know one thing the only thing because I don't think, you know, I never have really felt like I have known what I'm doing or that I'm doing anything in particular the right way, but I really do try to be an example to my kids, and whatever it is that I believe in strongly, I really try to live it and
Yeah, that's the big thing. Set a good example.
set a good example, and you know, just be every opportunity you get to bear your testimony, either through your example or just, you know, when the moments come when you can. And one thing